The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was enormous. Hundreds of alien species filled the floating seats that circled the center platform. Some aliens had scales, others had fur, and some looked like they were made of pure energy. They all watched the human standing alone in the middle of the room. Ambassador Michael Torres stood straight, his blue uniform clean and pressed. He held a data tablet in his hands. Behind him, a holographic display showed Earth, the small blue planet that humanity called home. He had traveled 3 months to get here, crossing impossible distances through alien transportation technology that humans barely understood. The Catharan Admiral Zexthor leaned forward in his elevated seat. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like dark metal. His species had conquered 47 different alien races over the past 1,000 years. To him, humans were just another primitive species waiting to be absorbed into the Empire. "You may present your defense proposal, human," Zexthor said. His voice was deep and rumbled through the translation devices everyone wore. Torres took a deep breath. He activated his tablet and the holographic display changed. It now showed a large platform with several long cannons mounted on it. The design looked simple, almost ancient compared to the sleek energy weapons the other species used. "This is the Gauntlet," Torres began. "It is our primary planetary defense system. Each installation contains 12 railguns that can fire tungsten projectiles at 4% of light speed. We have positioned 72 of these installations across the moon's surface, protecting Earth." For a moment, there was silence in the chamber. Then someone started laughing. The sound spread quickly. Within seconds, the entire council chamber echoed with laughter from hundreds of different species. Some aliens slapped their legs, tentacles, or whatever appendages they had. Others made strange whistling sounds that Torres's translator said meant extreme amusement. Zexthor's laugh was the loudest. It sounded like thunder rolling across a metal plane. He stood up, his forearms spread wide. "Railguns? Kinetic weapons? Did you actually travel all this way to show us ancient ballistic technology?" A smaller alien with 6 eyes spoke up from the left side. "Admiral, my instruments indicate these weapons fire solid metal projectiles." "Physical ammunition. Do they not understand that such weapons have been obsolete for over 10,000 years? Another voice called out. "Perhaps they ran out of rocks to throw." The laughter grew even louder. Torres felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his expression neutral. He had expected this reaction. General Chen had warned him it would happen. Zexthor raised one of his hands, and the chamber slowly became quiet. He looked at Torres with something that might have been pity. "Human, let me explain something to you. Every species in this council has energy shield technology. These shields can stop any physical object no matter how fast it moves. A projectile moving at 4% light speed is impressive by primitive standards, but my shields would stop it as easily as you might catch a floating feather." He gestured to a holographic display that appeared above his seat. It showed a Catharan warship. The ship was sleek and dangerous looking, covered in angular plates that glowed with a purple light. "This is one standard Catharan destroyer. Its shields can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons, antimatter missiles, and graviton beams. Your metal slugs would simply bounce off like rain hitting a window." Torres cleared his throat. "Admiral, with respect, we have tested the Gauntlet extensively. We are confident in its capabilities." "Confident?" Zexthor's expression darkened. "Let me be clear, human. The Catharan Empire has identified Earth as a resource-rich world suitable for colonization. We have come to this council to formally announce our claim. You have 2 choices. Submit peacefully to Imperial rule or resist and be conquered by force." He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Torres. "Your railguns are toys. Your entire species poses no threat to the Empire. Submit, and your people will be allowed to live as workers within our society. Resist, and we will demonstrate the full power of a true military force." Torres looked up at the alien admiral. He thought about the 3 billion people on Earth, going about their daily lives not knowing that their future was being decided light years away. He thought about General Chen, who had spent the last 5 years overseeing the construction of the Gauntlet. He thought about the engineers and scientists who had worked day and night on the project, always being told to keep it simple, to make it look primitive, to make sure everyone would underestimate it. "The people of Earth do not submit," Torres said quietly. "We will defend our home." Zexthor straightened up. The amusement was gone from his face. "Then you have chosen extinction. The Empire will mobilize immediately. Our armada will arrive at your planet in exactly 3 Earth months. We will bring 300 warships. After we destroy your laughable railguns, we will take your planet, and your species will learn what it means to defy the Catharan Empire." He turned to address the council. "Let this serve as a lesson. The Empire grows, and primitives who refuse to see reason will be swept aside." Torres was escorted out of the chamber. As he walked through the long corridors back to the human transport ship, he activated his communication device. The message would take weeks to reach Earth, but General Chen needed to know the outcome. "They laughed," Torres said into the device. "They think the gauntlet is primitive and useless. They're sending 300 warships in 3 months. The plan worked. They completely underestimated us." He paused, then added, "God help them. They have no idea what's coming." Back on Earth 3 months later, General Sarah Chen stood in the command center deep beneath the lunar surface. Screens surrounded her, showing the approaching Catharan Armada. 300 alien warships, each one massive and powerful, moving toward Earth with absolute confidence. She watched them come closer, and a grim smile crossed her face. In her hand, she held a control tablet. On its screen, a single button glowed red. Next to it, 2 words, "The Gauntlet." "Let them laugh," she whispered. "Let them laugh all the way until they understand what humanity really is." The Catharan Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel in a flash of purple energy. 300 warships materialized in formation, their shields already glowing with power. Each ship was massive, some stretching over 2 kilometers in length. They arranged themselves in a perfect battle formation that had been used successfully for centuries across dozens of conquered worlds. Admiral Zexthor stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominant Fang. Through the viewing screens, he could see the small blue planet ahead. Earth looked peaceful and vulnerable. Several of his officers were already celebrating, opening bottles of Catharan victory wine. "Begin planetary scan," Zexthor commanded. "Locate all military installations and prepare weapon systems." A tactical officer, a smaller Catharan with specialized sensor implants, worked at her console. "Admiral, I am detecting multiple satellite networks and orbital stations. The humans appear to have basic space infrastructure. Are any of them armed?" Zexthor asked. "Yes, Admiral. I count 47 orbital defense platforms. They are equipped with missile systems and laser arrays." Zexthor laughed. "Only 47? This will be over quickly. Destroy them all." The Armada's forward ships opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy lanced through space, striking the human orbital platforms. Missiles launched from Earth, streaking toward the alien vessels. For a few moments, space lit up with explosions and weapon fire. But it was hopeless. The human weapons struck the Catharan shields and dissipated harmlessly. The alien energy weapons, however, tore through Earth's defenses like paper. One by one, the orbital platforms exploded into clouds of debris. The missiles either missed or detonated uselessly against the alien shields. Within 20 minutes, all of Earth's conventional defenses were destroyed. Zexthor activated the communication system to broadcast to Earth. His face appeared on every screen, every television, every device across the planet that could receive signals. Billions of humans saw the alien admiral's face for the first time. "Humans of Earth," Zexthor announced, "your orbital defenses have been eliminated. You now see the power of the Catharan Empire. We gave you the opportunity to submit peacefully. You refused. Now you will learn the price of defiance." He gestured to his tactical officer. "Show them our full strength." The 300 warships moved forward in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed in the light of Earth's sun. Their shields created a visible distortion in space, like heat waves rising from hot ground. "Scan the moon," Zexthor ordered. The human ambassador said their railgun installations were there. "I want to see these primitive weapons with my own eyes before we destroy them." The tactical officer's sensors focused on the lunar surface. Her eyes widened slightly. "Admiral, I am detecting the installations."
They are exactly where the humans said they would be.
72 separate complexes, all on the side of the moon facing us. Perfect. They make this easy. Display them on the main screen. The viewing screen changed to show detailed images of the lunar surface. There, clearly visible, were the installations. Each one consisted of a large platform with 12 long cannons pointing toward space. They looked exactly like the holograms Ambassador Torres had shown to the Galactic Council 3 months ago. Several officers gathered around to look at the images. One of them, a young tactical specialist, started analyzing the installations with his scanner. "Admiral," he said, unable to keep the amusement from his voice. "These weapons are even more primitive than we thought. They are simple electromagnetic accelerators. They use magnetic fields to propel solid projectiles. The estimated muzzle velocity is approximately 4% light speed." Another officer added, "Our shields are rated to stop objects moving at 40% light speed. These weapons cannot possibly threaten us." "And they call this the gauntlet," someone said. "The only thing terrifying about it is how outdated it is." Laughter filled the command deck. Even Zexthor smiled, showing his sharp teeth. He had conquered many worlds, faced many desperate defenses, but he had never seen anything quite this pathetic. "Humans," he broadcast again, "we have located your primary defense system. We are looking at your gauntlet installations right now. I want you to understand something. The weapons you spent years building, the weapons you placed your faith in, are obsolete. They are relics from a bygone age. They cannot harm us," he paused for effect. "But I am not without mercy. Power down your weapons. Surrender now. If you do, we will allow your species to survive as workers in the Empire. Refuse, and we will demonstrate exactly why kinetic weapons have no place in modern warfare." On the moon, deep inside the command center, General Chen watched the alien broadcast. Around her, human officers and technicians worked at their stations. The room was quiet, tense. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Chen's communication officer turned to her. "General, the Catharan fleet is moving into assault formation. They are heading directly toward the gauntlet installations. Their shields are at maximum power." "Distance?" Chen asked calmly. 200,000 kilometers and closing. "They are not attempting evasive maneuvers. They are coming straight at us," Chen nodded slowly. She had expected this. The aliens were so confident in their shields that they saw no need for caution. They wanted to get close, to destroy the railguns at point-blank range, to make a statement. "Let them come," she said. "All installations are to hold fire until the fleet reaches the engagement zone." "General," another officer said nervously, "that means they will be less than 50,000 kilometers away. That is extremely close range. If something goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong, Lieutenant," Chen interrupted. "Trust the plan." On the dominant Fang, the tactical officer reported, "Admiral, we are approaching the human installations. Range is now 100,000 kilometers. The railguns are not firing. I believe they may be attempting to surrender." Zexthor leaned back in his command chair. "No, they are simply frozen with fear. They finally understand that their weapons are useless. Continue the approach. I want to be close enough to see the expressions on their faces when we destroy their precious gauntlet." The Catharan Armada continued forward. 50,000 kilometers, 40,000, 30,000. Still the human weapons did not fire. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, "we are now within optimal firing range of the human weapons. Should we destroy them now?" "Not yet," Zexthor said. "Closer. I want to watch them realize their defeat. I want this moment to break them completely." 20,000 kilometers. Then finally the gauntlet installations activated. On the lunar surface, 72 separate complexes came to life. 864 railgun barrels rotated, aimed, and locked onto their targets. Electromagnetic fields built up power, crackling with barely contained energy. General Chen's hand hovered over her control tablet. She looked at the screen showing the alien fleet, now so close that individual ships were clearly visible. "Fire," she said quietly. The moon seemed to shudder as every railgun fired simultaneously. Tungsten projectiles, each one weighing several tons, launched from the barrels at 4% of light speed. They crossed the distance to the alien fleet in less than 2 seconds. Zexthor watched the projectiles approach on his sensors. He smiled. This was it. This was the moment the humans would learn their lesson. The projectiles struck the Catharan shields, and exactly as predicted, the shields stopped them completely. The kinetic energy was absorbed and dispersed. Not a single projectile penetrated the shield envelopes. The Armada continued forward, completely undamaged. On the dominant Fang, the entire crew erupted in cheers and laughter. "Is this humanity's best?" Zexthor shouted. "We expected." Then General Chen's voice cut through every communication channel in the alien fleet. Her words were calm, almost conversational. "You analyzed the weapons. Did you analyze the ammunition?" Confusion rippled through the dominant Fang's command deck. Admiral Zexthor stopped mid-sentence, his forearms frozen in their celebratory gesture. Around him, his officers exchanged uncertain glances. "What does she mean?" one of them asked. The tactical officer quickly began running deeper scans on the stopped projectiles. Her sensor implants glowed brighter as she processed more data. Then her expression changed. The confidence drained from her face, replaced by something humans would recognize as fear. "Admiral," she said, her voice suddenly urgent. "The projectiles. They are not solid." "What?" Zexthor moved to her station. "Explain. Sir, each projectile is a shell. A container. My scans indicate that each one contains approximately 2,000 smaller submunitions packed inside. The shells have thin walls designed to rupture on impact." Another officer leaned over to look at the data. "But the shields already stopped them." "They hit the shields and stopped outside our defensive perimeter. The submunitions cannot reach us." "No," the tactical officer said slowly. Her hands trembled as she worked her console. "Look at the trajectory data again. The shells did not stop at the shields. They passed through the shields." "That is impossible," Zexthor snapped. "Our shields stop all physical matter." "They stop fast-moving physical matter, Admiral. They are designed to stop weapons traveling at combat velocities. These shells were traveling at 4% light speed when they were launched, yes. But look at what happened when they hit our shield envelope." She pulled up a detailed analysis on the main screen. The room went silent as everyone watched the playback. The tungsten shells had indeed struck the shield barrier. The shields, designed to stop or destroy incoming threats, had dumped massive amounts of energy into the projectiles to slow them down. And it had worked. The shells lost velocity quickly, dropping from 4% light speed to barely 2%, then 1%, then even slower. But here was the problem. The shields were programmed to stop fast threats. Once an object slowed below a certain threshold, the shields classified it as neutralized and stopped wasting energy on it. The shells, now moving at a relatively slow speed, simply drifted through the shield envelope like someone walking through an automatic door, and now they were inside the defensive perimeter, floating, surrounded by Catharan warships on all sides. "Get them out," Zexthor roared. "Tractors, beams, gravity manipulators. Push them back outside the shields." The crew scrambled to comply, but they were too slow. They had wasted precious seconds in confusion and analysis. The shells ruptured. Each of the tungsten containers split open like a flower blooming. From inside each shell, thousands of smaller objects erupted outward. They spread in all directions, filling the space between the warships with a cloud of tiny submunitions. The tactical officer's scanners finally identified what they were. "Microfusion charges. Each submunition is a miniaturized fusion warhead." "How small?" someone asked. "Approximately 5 centimeters in diameter. Each shell contained 2,000 of them." "We stopped 864 shells." Someone did the math quickly. "That means over 1 million fusion charges are now inside our formation." For a single heartbeat, nobody moved. The Catharan warriors, who had conquered dozens of worlds, who had never known defeat, simply stared at their screens in disbelief. Then the submunitions detonated. Space itself seemed to scream. Over 1 million microfusion explosions erupted simultaneously inside the Catharan defensive perimeter. Each individual explosion was small, barely enough to damage a warship's hull. But there were so many of them, and they were everywhere. And most importantly, they were inside the shields. The shields that had so easily stopped the railgun shells were designed to protect against external threats. They could not stop explosions that originated from inside the defensive barrier. It was like having a bulletproof vest that protected your chest but left your back completely exposed. The dominant Fang shuddered as dozens of fusion charges detonated against its hull. Armor plating cracked. Weapon systems went offline. The ship next to it, the Swift Talon, had more than 100 charges detonate inside its engine compartment. The resulting explosion tore the ship in half, but the real horror was what happened next. The shields, still active and still pumping enormous amounts of energy into the surrounding space, began to interact with the fusion explosions in unexpected ways. The energy feedback created loops where the shield energy amplified the explosive force instead of dampening it. Fusion explosions triggered more fusion explosions. The shield energy itself became weaponized. Ships that tried to lower their shields to escape the feedback loops were immediately hit by charges from neighboring vessels' explosions. Ships that kept their shields up were torn apart by the amplified detonations within their own defensive perimeters. The perfect battle formation became a death trap. Ships collided with each other as they tried to escape. Some attempted emergency jumps to faster than light speed, but their systems were too damaged. 3 ships managed to jump, but they jumped blind without proper calculations. They vanished into FTL and were never seen again. Admiral Zexthor clung to his command chair as the dominant Fang bucked and rolled. Alarms screamed from every station. The viewing screens showed a vision of hell. Everywhere he looked, Catharan ships were dying. "Report," he shouted over the chaos. "We have lost 63 ships." The tactical officer screamed back. "No, 71. The number keeps rising. Shield failures are cascading through the fleet. Return fire. Destroy those lunar installations." "We cannot target them, Admiral. Our weapon systems are offline, and the humans are firing again." Zexthor looked at the tactical display in horror. On the moon's surface, the gauntlet installations were reloading. The 72 complexes had fired once, and that single volley had devastated the Armada. Now they were preparing to fire a second time. "All ships," Zexthor broadcast. "Evasive maneuvers. Break formation. Get out of range." But they were too close. The humans had lured them into point-blank range, and now the Catharan ships were trapped between the moon and their own dying vessels. The gauntlet fired again. 864 more shells launched from the lunar surface. This time the Catharan fleet was in complete disarray. Ships scattered in all directions trying to escape. Some crashed into each other. Others, desperate to avoid the incoming shells, flew directly into the debris field created by their own destroyed vessels. The second volley hit different ships than the first. The same deadly sequence repeated. Shells passed through the shields. Shells ruptured. Fusion charges detonated. Shield feedback amplified the explosions. More ships died. The space between Earth and Moon filled with wreckage and fire. Zexthor watched his proud armada being systematically destroyed. 300 warships had arrived in Earth's orbit less than an hour ago. Now barely 120 remained combat-capable, and that number was dropping every second. "They tricked us," he whispered. His 4 hands gripped the armrests of his chair so hard the metal bent. "The weapons are not primitive." "We are." The tactical officer, her face bleeding from a console explosion, looked up at him. "Admiral, the humans are firing a third volley. We need to retreat now." Zexthor stared at the screen. He had conquered 47 species. He had never retreated from battle. The shame of it would follow him forever, but the alternative was death. "Complete annihilation. All surviving ships," he said, his voice hollow. "Emergency FTL jump. Scatter pattern. Get out of human weapon range." The surviving Catharan vessels began charging their faster-than-light drives. It would take 60 seconds for the systems to build enough power. On the moon, General Chen watched the alien fleet begin to flee. She checked her tactical display. The third volley was already in flight. It would reach the enemy in approximately 30 seconds. "Commander," she said to her weapons officer, "activate Starfall protocol." The officer's eyes widened. "General, are you sure?" "That was meant only for— They came here to conquer us," Chen interrupted. "To make us slaves. They laughed at our defenses. They thought we were primitive." She looked directly at the screen showing the fleeing alien ships. "Activate Starfall," she repeated. "Let us show them just how advanced primitives can be." The third volley from the gauntlet struck the Catharan fleet just as many ships were beginning their emergency jump to faster-than-light speed. The timing could not have been worse for the aliens. Some vessels had already built up enough energy for the jump, but had not yet engaged their drives. Others were still charging their systems, vulnerable and desperate. The tungsten shells performed their deadly dance once more. They passed through shields that had been designed to stop them. They ruptured inside the defensive perimeters. They released their cargo of microfusion charges. And once again, space erupted in a storm of fire. This time, however, something new happened. Ships that were in the process of jumping to FTL had built up massive amounts of exotic energy in their drive cores. When the fusion charges detonated, they interacted with this energy in catastrophic ways. The relentless Dawn, a heavy cruiser, had just engaged its FTL drive when 30 fusion charges detonated against its hull. The drive core destabilized instantly. Instead of jumping to faster-than-light speed, the ship simply vanished in a flash of energy that temporarily blinded every sensor for thousands of kilometers. The explosion was so violent it destroyed 2 nearby ships that were trying to escape. Another vessel, the Pride of Cathar, managed to complete its jump. But it jumped blind, with damaged navigation systems, while fusion charges were still exploding against its hull. It entered FTL space with its shields fluctuating wildly. 3 seconds later, the shield collapse created a feedback pulse through the ship's power grid. The Pride of Cathar exploded, while in faster-than-light travel, something that should have been impossible. The exotic energy release created a temporary rift in space that lasted for 17 seconds, before reality sealed itself shut again. Admiral Zexthor watched in numb horror as more of his fleet died. The dominant Fang's FTL drive was charging, but slowly. Too slowly. The ship had taken severe damage and the drive systems were running at only 60% efficiency. 40 seconds until we can jump, the navigation officer reported. His voice shook. We do not have 40 seconds, the tactical officer said. She pointed at her screen. General Chen activated something called Starfall Protocol. I am detecting new launches from the lunar installations. More railgun shells? Zexthor asked. No, Admiral, these are different. They appear to be. I do not understand the readings. They are moving slower than the previous projectiles. Much slower. On the moon, General Chen watched as the gauntlet installations changed their configuration. The railguns retracted into the platforms, and different weapons emerged. These were not electromagnetic accelerators. These were conventional rocket systems, primitive even by human standards. But they were not designed to be fast. They were designed to be patient. Starfall missiles away, the weapons officer reported. All installations have launched. Total count, 1,044 missiles. Chen nodded. The Starfall missiles were not impressive by any measure. They traveled at a mere fraction of the speed that the railgun shells could achieve. They had no advanced targeting systems, no AI guidance, no energy shields. They were simple rockets with simple payloads. But they had one special feature. They were coated with a material that absorbed sensor scans. They were difficult to detect, especially in the chaos of a battlefield filled with explosions and debris. The missiles launched from the moon's surface and began their slow journey toward the Catharan fleet. They did not follow straight paths. Instead, they curved and wove through space, moving between pieces of wreckage, hiding in the sensor shadows cast by destroyed ships. On the dominant Fang, the tactical officer frowned at her console. Admiral, I am detecting anomalous movement patterns in the debris field. It is difficult to scan clearly. The residual energy from the explosions is interfering with our sensors. Forget the debris, Zexthor snapped. How long until we can jump? 25 seconds. 25 seconds. It seemed like an eternity. Around them, the few remaining Catharan ships were either jumping away or dying in the attempt. The mighty Armada that had arrived with such confidence was now a scattered, broken force fighting only to survive. One of the Starfall missiles reached its target first. It had been traveling for nearly 3 minutes, moving slowly enough that the Catharan shields had not even registered it as a threat. It approached a damaged destroyer called the Iron Will. The ship's shields were down, its crew desperately trying to repair the FTL drive. The missile struck the Iron Will's hull and detonated. But this was not a fusion charge. This was something much simpler and much more insidious. The missile was filled with thousands of small metal fragments, each one equipped with a tiny magnet and a simple computer chip. When they struck the ship's hull, they stuck to the metal surface and began to burrow inward using nothing more complicated than a diamond drill bit and a small motor. Within seconds, hundreds of these fragments had penetrated the Iron Will's outer hull. They worked their way deeper, following power conduits and data cables, spreading through the ship like a disease. What is happening? The Iron Will's captain shouted. We are losing power to multiple systems. His engineer checked the diagnostics and went pale. Captain, we have foreign objects inside the ship. They are cutting through our systems. They are in the engine room. They are in the bridge conduits. They are everywhere. One of the fragments reached the Iron Will's fuel storage. The small drill bit pierced the containment vessel, and the fragment's computer chip sent a simple electrical pulse. The fuel ignited, The iron will exploded from the inside out. More Starfall missiles found their targets. They moved slowly through the battlefield, almost invisible, striking ships that thought they were safe. Some hit vessels that had already begun their FTL jump sequence. The fragments burrowed into the drive systems, and ships that successfully jumped carried the sabotage with them into faster-than-light space. "Admiral!" the dominant Fang's tactical officer shouted. "New contacts! They are moving through the debris field. I count over 900 objects heading toward us." "Are they more shells?" Zexthor demanded. "No, sir, they are too slow. They are traveling at approximately 0.001% light speed. They are barely faster than our own ships at sublight speeds." Zexthor felt cold realization wash over him. The humans had launched these weapons minutes ago. While everyone's attention was focused on the devastating railgun volleys, these new weapons had been approaching the entire time, hidden in the chaos and wreckage. "Point defense systems," he ordered. "Destroy those missiles." "Point defense is offline, Admiral. We took damage to those systems in the first attack." Then, "Use the main weapons. Main weapons are offline too, sir." The dominant Fang was helpless. Its shields were still functional barely, but all its weapon systems had been destroyed or damaged. The ship could defend, but not attack. "Time to FTL jump?" Zexthor asked desperately. 15 seconds. 3 Starfall missiles were heading directly toward the dominant Fang. They moved slowly, deliberately, like patient hunters stalking wounded prey. The ship's shields, still programmed to stop fast-moving threats, did not even activate against these slow-moving objects. The first missile struck the dominant Fang's starboard hull. Thousands of fragments spread across the surface and began drilling inward. "We have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, someone shouted. "The objects are cutting through our systems." 10 seconds to jump, the navigator called out. The second missile hit the port side. More fragments, more drilling, more damage spreading through the ship like poison through veins. Zexthor gripped his command chair. His flagship, the pride of the Catharan Empire, was being destroyed by simple metal fragments and basic drill bits. The irony was not lost on him. They had mocked humanity for using kinetic weapons, for clinging to primitive ballistics. And now, those same primitive concepts were killing them. 5 seconds to jump, the navigator shouted. The third missile struck the dominant Fang's lower hull, directly above the FTL drive chamber. Fragments penetrated the hull. Drills bit into power conduits. One fragment found a data cable that ran directly to the FTL drive controls. It cut through the cable at the precise moment the drive was beginning its activation sequence. The navigation officer watched his console go haywire. "Drive systems are malfunctioning. The jump sequence is aborting." "Override it," Zexthor roared. "Manual activation." The navigator's hands flew across his console, trying to restart the sequence. But the fragments had cut too many connections. The FTL drive powered down, and it would take minutes to restart the charging process. Minutes they did not have. All around them, Catharan ships were jumping to safety or dying in place. The dominant Fang, the flagship of the Armada, could do neither. It drifted in space, crippled and helpless, surrounded by the wreckage of 200 of its sister ships. 1 week after the battle, Ambassador Michael Torres once again stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. But this time he was not alone. General Sarah Chen stood beside him, wearing her military uniform with medals that gleamed under the chamber's lights. The seats around them were filled with the same alien species, but the atmosphere was completely different from 3 months ago. Nobody was laughing now. Admiral Zexthor was also present, though he looked nothing like the proud warrior who had issued ultimatums before. His flagship had been captured intact by human forces when it failed to jump to FTL. He and his crew had been held for 6 days before being released and sent back to Catharan space. His forearms were bound in ceremonial chains that signified defeat in his culture. He looked at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The council leader, an ancient being of pure energy named Vex Mora, spoke first. Its voice echoed through every translator in the chamber. "Ambassador Torres, General Chen, you have been summoned to provide an account of the engagement between human forces and the Catharan Armada. The Council has reviewed initial reports, but we wish to hear directly from you. Chen stepped forward. Unlike Torres, she showed no nervousness. She had just won one of the most one-sided military victories in galactic history. She had earned the right to be confident. The Catharan Empire dispatched 300 warships to conquer Earth, Chen began. They approached our planet with their shields at maximum power, confident that our kinetic weapons could not harm them. They were correct. Our railguns could not penetrate their shields. She paused, and several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But we never intended to penetrate their shields, Chen continued. We designed our weapons to bypass them. The railgun shells were containers, not solid projectiles. They carried micro-fusion charges. When the shells struck the Catharan shields, the shields did exactly what they were designed to do. They slowed the shells down, draining their kinetic energy. But once the shells dropped below threat velocity, the shields let them pass through. The submunitions then detonated inside the defensive perimeter. She activated a holographic display that showed the battle in detail. The aliens watched in silence as the recording showed shell after shell passing through the vaunted Catharan shields and exploding inside. The shield's own energy created feedback, loops that amplified the explosions, Chen explained. A defensive system became a weapon against the very ships it was meant to protect. Of the 300 ships that attacked Earth, only 40 managed to escape the initial engagement. An alien counselor with tentacles raised an appendage. General Chen, our records indicate that only 13 ships returned to Catharan space. What happened to the other 27 vessels? Chen's expression did not change. They were destroyed by delayed action munitions that had embedded themselves in the ship's hulls during the battle. The Starfall missiles deployed thousands of small fragments that burrowed into the alien vessels. These fragments remained dormant long enough for some ships to escape the battle zone, then activated once the vessels were in faster-than-light travel. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Destroying a ship in FTL space was considered nearly impossible and extremely dangerous, as it could create unpredictable spatial anomalies. You deliberately sabotaged ships during FTL travel? Another counselor asked, its voice sharp with accusation. We did, Chen replied calmly. The Catharan Empire came to our world to conquer us. They announced their intention to make humanity into slaves. When someone tries to destroy your civilization, you do not fight with half measures. You fight to win. Sexthor finally looked up. His voice was hollow when he spoke. She is right. We came with full intent to conquer, kill, or enslave. We believed humanity was primitive and weak. We laughed at their weapons. He looked directly at Chen. We did not realize that sometimes the old ways work because everyone forgets to defend against them. Torres stepped forward now. The gauntlet was always designed as a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. We knew that advanced civilizations would dismiss kinetic weapons as obsolete. We knew they would rely entirely on their energy shields. So we built a weapon that exploited that exact assumption. He activated another section of the holographic display. It showed schematics of the railgun shells, the microfusion charges, and the Starfall missiles. But it also showed dozens of other weapon systems, each one designed to exploit different assumptions and weaknesses in advanced technology. This is our weapons development philosophy, Torres explained. We do not try to match the technological level of potential enemies. Instead, we identify what they assume is outdated, and therefore no longer a threat. Then we modernize those supposedly obsolete concepts and turn them into weapons that advanced defenses are not prepared to stop. A small alien with 6 eyes studied the schematics. These other weapons, are they functional or merely theoretical? Fully functional and deployed, Chen answered. We have installations across Earth, Luna, Mars, and several asteroids in our system. Each installation has multiple weapon types, all designed around the principle of asymmetric warfare. And if we were to adapt our defenses, the 6-eyed alien asked, if we developed shield systems that stop slow-moving objects as well as fast ones? Chen smiled, and several aliens found the expression unsettling. Then we will have already moved on to the next generation of weapons. We have teams working on 12 different counters to every possible adaptation you might make. Let them laugh at those too. Vex Mora, the council leader, pulsed with light that translated as deep consideration. The Catharan Empire violated council law by attempting to conquer a species without just cause. Normally, the council would impose sanctions and reparations. However, given the scale of the Empire's defeat, It seems humanity has already exacted its own justice. The energy being turned its attention to Torres and Chen. Ambassador Torres, General Chen, humanity has demonstrated both technological ingenuity and military effectiveness. The Council hereby extends an offer of full membership. You would have voting rights, access to Council technology and trade networks, and protection under Council law. What is your response? Torres and Chen exchanged a glance. They had discussed this possibility during the week of waiting. We accept membership, Torres said, but we have conditions. First, Earth maintains full sovereignty over its territory and defensive systems. Second, we reserve the right to refuse technology transfers if we believe they would compromise our security. Third, any Council laws regarding acceptable weapons are recognized as suggestions, not mandates. Several councillors began to protest, but Vexamora silenced them with a pulse of light. Your conditions are noted and accepted. Humanity has earned the right to set its own terms. You are now full members of the Galactic Council. The declaration made official what everyone already knew. Humanity could not be ignored, could not be dismissed, and most certainly could not be conquered. As the session ended and aliens began filing out, many made a point to approach the human delegation. Some offered congratulations. Others wanted to discuss trade agreements. A few military specialists asked quiet questions about the Gauntlet's design principles, though both Torres and Chen politely declined to share details. Zex Thor approached last. He looked at Chen with something that might have been respect, though it was hard to read alien expressions. General, he said quietly, I have conquered 47 worlds. I have never been defeated. Not like this, he paused. What you did was not honorable by Catharan standards, but it was effective. Brutally so. War is not about honor, Chen replied. It is about survival. You came to destroy my species. I did what was necessary to stop you. Zexthor nodded slowly. The Empire will remember this lesson. Humanity is not primitive. Humanity is dangerous. He turned to leave, then stopped. One question. The shells, the fusion charges, the fragments. How long did it take you to develop these weapons? Chen smiled that unsettling smile again. We have been working on kinetic weapon systems since we first learned to throw rocks at predators. We have had millions of years to perfect the art of hitting things with other things. The Gauntlet is simply the latest iteration. Zexthor walked away without another word, his chains rattling softly. 6 months later, General Chen stood in a new command center on Mars. Through the windows, she could see the red landscape dotted with construction sites. New Gauntlet installations were being built along with other defensive systems. Earth's sphere of protection was expanding to cover the entire inner solar system. Her second-in-command, Commander Williams, approached with a datapad. General, the Council has sent another request for information about our weapon systems. They are particularly interested in the fusion charge delivery mechanism. Denied, Chen said without hesitation. Same as the last 50 requests. They are offering significant trade benefits in exchange. Still denied. Let them develop their own solutions. Let them learn to think like us if they can. Williams smiled. The engineering teams have completed the next generation system. They are calling it the Crucible. It is designed to counter shield systems that have been adapted to stop the Gauntlet. Already? Chen was impressed. What is the concept? Gravity manipulation, ma'am. Instead of passing through shields or penetrating them, these weapons will pull ships into each other using localized gravity fields. The aliens will have to choose between keeping their shields up and having them literally tear their own fleet apart, or lowering their shields and becoming vulnerable to conventional weapons. Chen nodded in approval. How long until deployment? 8 months for full operational capacity. Make it 6. I want the Crucible installations online before anyone realizes we are building them, and start preliminary work on whatever comes after the Crucible. Stay ahead of the curve. Yes, ma'am. There is one more thing. Ambassador Torres sent a message from the Council chambers. Apparently 3 different species have approached him about forming defense pacts with Earth. They want human protection against potential aggressors. Chen raised an eyebrow. 3 months ago they were laughing at us. Now they want us to protect them? Apparently word has spread about what happened to the Catharan Armada. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of human weapons. Good, Chen said. She looked out at the Martian landscape, at the weapons being built, at the expanding sphere of human influence. Let them remember. Let them tell stories about the primitive species with the ancient weapons, Let them warn each other about underestimating humanity. She turned back to Williams. Because the next time someone threatens Earth, we will have even more surprises waiting for them. We do not fight fair. We fight to win. And we will never stop innovating, never stop adapting, never stop being dangerous. On Earth, billions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware of how close they had come to conquest. But in the dark between the stars, the other species of the galaxy shared a new truth. Humanity had arrived, and they had arrived with a message written in the wreckage of 300 warships. Do not underestimate the humans. They will smile, show you ancient weapons, and let you laugh. And then, while you are still laughing, they will show you exactly why they survived every extinction event their brutal planet threw at them. They do not fight like civilized species. They fight like survivors, and survivors always find a way to win.